I'm Roniel.
I'm DaRon. In today's episode, we're going to get a little existentialist with Roniel here.
So interesting.
Yes. So, as you know, of course, you've dealt with love, you've dealt with loss, you will deal with your own impending doom and death at some point. The question really comes down to not what do you see as the meaning and purpose of life, and because that's a frequently asked question, but I don't know that it's necessarily useful because the meaning and purpose depends on the individual. Beyond saying that the purpose of life obviously is to be happy and to do good things, I really want to know, understanding that someday you will be dead and gone. And this, I think, goes to Black Twitter, which we were
Yeah.
just talking about. That
Yeah.
was a little low. I'm sorry.
No,
But
that's cool.
understanding you, like Black Twitter, will be dead and gone someday. How do you see, what do you see as the primal instinct for all people? The one thing that we all want to do in order to live life in a meaningful way and be able to look back at what we've done and say, I didn't waste it all.
Well, a lot of people are wasting their life, but um, I
Unfortunately, true.
mean, yeah, I mean, and that, and I'll touch bases on that why it bothers me as most. But I mean, I don't know. I guess a lot of people, and this could be my per se my preference on it, but I talked to a lot of people that they want to do a lot with their life, like finding love, being successful, whatever successful may mean to other people, but having money, being successful, having a house, getting married, doing all of these things that you see on TV, especially in Hollywood. It's all glamorous stuff that not always true in life, because everybody's status is different. But you want to try to pursue that happiness, right? Somewhere in the middle of there. But I guess the biggest problem is trying to pursue that happiness and look back and say, "Oh, I did all of these great things. I had kids. I had all of this stuff. I made millions of dollars and blah blah blah, all to just go nowhere." When you're 80 years old and you're on your deathbed and you think about everything you accomplished, and then next thing you know, you're dying for whatever reason it may be. All of that stuff is gone. As they always say, you can't take it with you, right? So all of that stuff you accomplished, you came in, with nothing to build something, to lose it all and never get it back. And it's like my thing is that you're never going to get that back. So to me, it's almost things like how is life supposed to be meaningful if you're never going to be able to take those meaningful things with you?
Well, and I think a lot of that then goes obviously to the accumulation of property, wealth, right? Do we crush ourselves with our own expectations when we, as we go through life, do you think, or do you find at least yourself maybe putting too many expectations for where you want to be, where you want to go, and find yourself unable to go there, spinning your wheels, and thereby wasting your time because the expectations are irrational, they're too high, they are just utterly impossible, as the case may be, or the focus was wrong. And we talked previously about that Emperor's syndrome, Pharaoh's syndrome, where people are doing that whole
Remember me! Remember me! Remember me!
So you see that within the security community all too often, where they're trying to put their name on things and they want their name splashed all over the place. Whereas I, for example, remove my name from pretty much everything.
I mean, from my perspective, when you come from family that have nothing, but always, you know, basically putting everything on you. The pressure's always on
Right.
you, especially as a man, as a black man in America, to be great, to for somebody to remember you, so somebody to know who you are, to be the most successful you can be. And in my case, it's always I have to be compared to other people, which is why when we had that discussion, like, it's hard for me to feel happiness when I'm always chasing the fact that I want to be the next Jordan. Okay. So for
Right.
instance, you may be Jordan. I'm not saying you are. I'm just saying, but in the security community, you can be considered Jordan, right? And obviously, no matter what I do, people are going to compare, hey, why are you not like, DaRon? What's up? Like, we're two different people, and at two different levels and experiences. So people don't understand that. But from me coming from my family, it's like it doesn't really matter. You have to be that person. And to be told every time that if you're not that person, then you're not the man, you're not smart enough, you're not this. So, a lot of it is like, oh, I have to be that person. Or otherwise my peers or people below me won't look at me the same because I didn't make it to that point. And it sucks because the focus is not about comparing and being like other people. It's being the best you can be,
Right.
whatever that may be. You know what I'm saying? I can't be DaRon.
Right.
I can only be Roniel. And the best that Roniel can be. So I can't compare myself to somebody else who, like I said, our experiences and levels are different. Where we came from or where we were, where we grew up is different. Um, so I think the focus should be, being the better you. Focus on what makes you happy, how you want to see whatever you see success, how you want to see your life and where you want it to go, and not about where everybody else sees your life and where they want it to go.
That's a good point. I think one of the important things, one of the important American ideologies specifically, is tied to self-fulfillment rather than. So I grew up, as we've mentioned, overseas and in military bases and things of that nature. Very collectivist societies. The military is very collectivist. Most other countries in the world are ultimately very collectivist, whereas the United States is very much the opposite. I would say it's a little too far on the extreme, just like Japan, for example, is too far in the collectivist extreme in a lot of ways. But if you were talking Japan or the Middle East or China, just to give some examples, you would see this heavy emphasis on doing things because it makes your family happy and it makes your family look good. You have to become a doctor. You have to be number one in class. And that's part of the reason why you see such high suicide rates in Japan and elsewhere. Whereas the United States relatively is not so much the case, assuming you get over the hump and assuming we control for the fact that males, for example, are extraordinarily likely to commit suicide relative to females in the United States. If we ignore that, because it can be muted, there are a lot of reasons for that. Most of it actually comes down to what you're talking about there, which is that societal pressure for you as a male to provide for your family, to provide not only for your wife and children, or if you don't have a wife, your girlfriend and children, but also oftentimes for your parents and for maybe even your siblings on either side and down the stack, all this other stuff. So when a male in the United States, for example, loses his job or doesn't perform and doesn't get a bonus or what have you, rightly or wrongly, they are more likely to take it very poorly and wrongly from time to time commit suicide as a direct result. So I guess I really wonder, see, you grew up in, I don't know that I would say it's very group oriented, but to a degree it's a group oriented culture. And
Yeah.
I say to a degree because they have to be very careful, right? There
Yeah.
are strong elements of individualism,
Yeah.
but there are also extraordinarily strong elements of that. We are a community kind of deal, and that's actually good. That's Community is very important to all of us. It's very good for our mental well-being and things of that nature, but it does increase that pressure, especially if you happen to be the one who's doing well. Now you're expected to kick back to everyone around you, which of course means that you're not doing as well.
Yep.
It's an odd give and take, but I wonder, when we emphasize that collectivism and we emphasize the group so much, do you fear that you as a human being get lost in the mix? And I don't just mean your wants and desires are ignored, but do your accomplishments get lost? Because it's no longer, hey, these are all the great things that Roniel did. It's now just, it's completely lost. It's not even, this is what the group did. It's just gone. It doesn't exist.
Yeah, it doesn't. It doesn't matter at all. For me, it seems like they don't exist. And, a lot of it could be, again, because of the pressure of, okay, yeah, so what? You did that. What else can you do?
Right.
All right, can you do this? Like I said, if I compare it because I'm comparing, like, say yourself, we're two different.
Right.
We're from two different races, but just say my mother or grandmother met you, and she's like, oh, this guy seems like he's done a lot of things. Well, hey, I've already done such and such, and I'm not too far from it. I still got some ways to go, but I've at least got to this point from where I was. Not knowing how you got where you got, and her biggest thing would be like, well, you need to do more.
Right.
Forget what you did. You need to do more.
Right.
Because he's here and you're there.
Right.
And it's like, but look at what I did, where I came from as a Black man, being able to be in this field, in security, being able to have my own, hold my own without depending on anybody, and being able to, walk the walk, talk the talk with everybody else when this is predominantly, Caucasian field.
That's true.
Being able to, really get into this field and hold my own, that's an accomplishment to me. That is awesome. Like, I don't care if anybody knows or ever hears about it. It's just that being able to do that when I was told I wouldn't. I mean, in high school, I was told that I wouldn't go to college. I wouldn't do anything. I wouldn't be even where I'm at now. I even had security people tell me, "No, you won't be in this field. You won't do this." But now look at where I'm at. And that's a great accomplishment to me. I'm not, trying to be something that I'm not. But obviously there's so much pressure to be that person. And that's pressure from whether it's my own community,
right,
or outside of my community.
Right. Right. Well, and I think as a result, it becomes very to exactly what you're talking about. It becomes very easy to lose sight of your own accomplishments, which then makes you look back at all that you've done and you say, well, okay, so I became a senior consultant here. I did this, and this for security. I have 2 daughters and was a good father to them, but I wasn't DaRon.
Right.
I never worked for this group. I never worked for that group. And I didn't write this. I didn't write that. I didn't create the nation's cybersecurity policies and laws. And I didn't secure weapon systems. I didn't create spacesuits for NASA and for the commercial world. I think one of the most important things that we have to do for our own mental health is sometimes distance ourselves from our community of birth.
Yeah.
Because they never see your growth. They'll always see you as little Roniel, little DaRon. And you could go through and we could get biblical and we could sit there and say, well, if you actually read, for example, in the Bible, when you're looking, that's what Jesus faced when he went back home, was that very same thing where people, of course, were like, well, no, we remember you. little Jesus kind of deal.
Right.
And I bring this up not to get religious. I bring this up merely to point out that this is a story that goes across ages. And it's also coupled with this same expectation that you have to be like your father if you're a
Right.
male,
Yep.
or your mother if you're a female. Oh, wait, you need to have the same accomplishments, whatever those accomplishments may be. If your father is a renowned blacksmith, it was expected you would become a renowned blacksmith. If your father was a renowned, absolutely fantastic martial artist, it would be expected that you would as well. Thankfully, we've thrown off that shackle a little bit, but I think it does persist, at least in certain communities. The only thing I guess I think instead is that since we've shifted from comparing the child to the parent, we seem to have moved to comparing the individual to the pinnacle of their field, which is always unfair because most people aren't going to be the pinnacle of their field. That's a slot that's reserved for a few. I fear that then as a result, when you do look back, it's too easy to dismiss your accomplishments exactly to what you were saying, because it's that relativism. Okay, well, maybe for you, you think you've done a great job, but we're going to compare you to this other person, which is completely, utterly, totally unfair. We'll compare your understanding and we will compare your accomplishments, despite the fact that you had different desires, you had different focuses. I was going to say foci, but I guess we're not talking science. And English, they don't like to properly conjugate. You have your own life, really, ultimately. And a lot of this, I think, goes back to maybe a few of the different topics that we talked about before. It just, do you fear that when you look back in, well, I mean, the truth is you never know when you're going to die, but let's say you were going to die tomorrow. Are you afraid that if you looked back at your life, you'd say there's something I would have done differently, or I should have done differently, or I could have done better?
There's a lot. I would have not went to ITD Tech. That is one of my first very, there are probably a lot even in my as I was younger, but that's stuff I couldn't really control. But these things that I could control, I probably wouldn't have went and did that. I just tell everybody again, we talked about this, don't go to trade schools.
Yeah.
Go to a 4-year college. It will save you a lot of stress. You know what I'm saying? I would change that in a heartbeat because that set me back from where I could have been.
Yes.
If I had just won, but I didn't know what it took. Like, I didn't even know this field existed back at that time. I just know that I wanted to hack. I was hacking at that time, just playing playful stuff, by the way. I was playing around on CTFs. So, doing playful things. But I was very interested in learning stuff, doing it on my own. And I didn't know that this was a field that you can actually get into. I didn't even know it existed. And then it was like, okay, it exists. What do I need? So I didn't know that then. I just noticed that most of the people that were really good, they were into electronics. So, I said, okay, let me be good at electronics. And that way I could be great at computers and all this other stuff, fixing them and all of these things. That didn't turn out to be great. And I also always wanted to be an engineer, and that didn't turn out to be because I wasn't actually able to become an engineer. So if I could go back, I would have started my road in computer science in the beginning. That way I would have probably been where I wanted to be faster and not taking that long road to get where I needed to be. And also, I guess another thing would be is not comparing myself to others. I think a lot of the things that I've been going through even recently and before is just comparing myself. It doesn't matter whether it's bodybuilding, martial art. Like, I am the type of person that because I had so much pressure on me to be the best, I feel like I have to be the best at whatever I do. But it's not always great. It's too much pressure. It's too much stress. And comparing yourself to other people, like DaRon is a mentor of mine, really good friend. But at the same time, like, I want to be as great as him, but I don't need to be him to be great. You know what I'm saying?
It's
I
true.
need to compare myself from where I was last year and where I'm at this year. Okay, not where DaRon is at, because I'm never going to be there. Okay, and that's something I had to learn. It doesn't matter, even your body. You're not going to be Arnold Schwarzenegger or
Right.
those people. You can only be as good as you can be. Your genetics, your whatever, your family tree, your ancestry,
Right.
whatever that may be. You can only be as good as you can be. So that was something I would change. Like, just like even starting now, I'm like, I don't care about where everybody else is at. I want to know where I'm at and where I can be. I mean, that's something I've been focused on. That's a big thing I would change about myself, because it would change a lot for me going forward if I would have thought about that sooner.
Yes.
And I mean, there's a few other things, but those are, to me, are big points, because it kind of, it's where it steered where my life was going, because of those two really major things, and not really understanding them, that, you know, schooling was important, okay, and where you went to,
Right.
and then how you perceive yourself, as an individual, like comparing yourself, like being, not understanding that you need to be the best you can be, and not try to be other people. And that's a big thing I see in every industry.
Definitely. And I think to your point about trade schools, one of the important things that we have to remember, because trade schools are on the rise, people, males especially, rather than going to college, foregoing college and instead going to trade schools, there are a lot of issues with that, to include what you get from a trade school cannot and does not transfer. And I mean, job wise, I mean, education wise, things of that nature. You couldn't take your degree from ITT Tech and port it over into an engineering degree or a computer science degree, because colleges wouldn't let you. And it's, if you went to a trade school for plumbing or to be an electrician, well, that's great. But what if you get into the field and you don't like it? At least with the college degree, you still can move. But
Yep.
with trade schools, you're usually pretty pigeonholed. And so I'm going to actually use that as a catalyst to ask what I think is the most important question, really circle back. So understanding that there are things that you would do differently. Understanding that we have expectations for ourselves, and sometimes our expectations are too numerous or they're too lofty. When you look back at what you have done today, ignoring the expectations everyone around you has for you, do you have a sense that you have missed out on life? Do you have a sense that you missed out on what could be and should be? Or do you see it as, this pathway led me to where I am today, and I'm, rather than, weep for what never was, I'm looking forward to what will be, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I am really big on basically not worrying about the past. I can't worry about the past. I can only worry about my future. If I dwell on the past, I'm never going to be able to get to my future. So even though, I sat around before and thinking like, damn, I missed out on a lot of things. Even from my childhood, I missed out on a lot of things because I didn't have the opportunity to be, a child. However, I'm like, now I'm just like, let's see where my future can go. I know I learned from my mistakes, and all of those mistakes were
Yes.
lessons. Okay.
And they made you who
And
you are today.
yeah, like they helped me get there. No matter how long the path may have been, which I've always had to tell people, like everybody's path is different. Everybody's road is different. How you get there does not always matter. It's just getting there. Okay, you're not go for music. Let's go there. Everybody doesn't blow up at the same point in time. It may take somebody 12 years, where it took somebody 1 year or 2 years. Everybody's path is different. Everybody has more access to resources. Everybody has more access to a lot of things. You may not have as many resources, access to certain people or individuals or things or material that most people have, but it doesn't really matter how you got there. It's just long as you got there. And then once you get there, what are you going to do then? And right now I'm like, I have to think about all the great things that I was able to do now. Like most people in whether it's my skin color or in my age system or bracket or whatever, they're not there. They're not even where I'm at. And most people will tell me, "Oh, I would love to be where you're at." Well, they can, but it's up to them to put in the footwork.
Right.
But the same thing, like only thing I can do is focus on my future, and I kind of just don't dwell on the past. Because if I do, it's going to hinder my future.
Yeah, that's true. And then as a result, when you do reach your timely or untimely end, it will be nothing but regrets, and that would be a real travesty. I think to me anyway, the real takeaway is understanding that if we live a life full of regrets, then we live a life we've wasted. Whereas if we instead see everything as an opportunity to explore and do better and be better, and we actually capitalize on that, then I think whether or not anyone remembers our name, because I'll tell you, 2,000 years from now, we have over 8 billion people on this planet. No one's going to remember the names of all but the smallest fraction of those people. And that's where this remember me thing falls apart, because no one's going to remember David Kennedy 2,000 years from now.
No, he's gonna be a blimp.
That's right.
Okay, like it's not gonna even matter. Like your offsprings are supposed to carry on your legacy.
Right.
They're supposed to be here to carry you on. Like that's who should remember you, not who cares about what of the world are. They don't. And to be honest with you, if you are a big figure in something, they don't care about nothing until you die.
Yeah.
And even then, that becomes a blimp. So it's like nobody cares. So you're chasing your life trying to be famous and everybody to remember all your great accomplishments. But guess what? When you die, nobody gives two shits. Nobody cared about you when you was alive. And then once you died, they may play you a little bit and then be done with it. Or they may say kumbayas and stuff and then they're done. Nobody cares. So all of the things that you did were for nothing. They were all lies. So it's like, be happy with your life. Enjoy your life. Do the things that you want to do and not what other people want you to do. Okay? Enjoy it. If you're not good at your job, you're not good at your field, you're not good at anything, find something that you're good at, because obviously it's going to make you miserable. You're not going to be good at what you do. You're not going to want to come to work. You're not going to be able to sustain what you're doing because you're not good at it.
And you also won't be known for it because you're not good at it.
Nope. And you also might get bitched out for it because you're not good at it. So I'm just saying, like, be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
All right. Enjoy your life. You only get one.
Yeah.
It takes 9 months to get here and 1 second to die. Okay. So enjoy it while you have it. You know what I'm saying? That it's a very big, important thing. And if nobody takes anything away from what we just said today, I think that is one very important factor. Enjoy your life.
Yeah.
Don't focus and don't dwell on the past. Don't focus on what you coulda, woulda, shoulda did. Focus on what you can do now, because that's what matters. I mean, no matter what age you are, focus on what you can do now and how you can enjoy life before that time comes, because we don't know when it's coming.
That's exactly right. But to exactly what you were talking about, don't be so busy looking backwards or looking at what could have been and what you could have done better that you fail to see what's in front of you in the future, so you can't capitalize on it, and as a result continue that downward spiral.
As he said, never backwards, always forward. That's a slogan. Anyways, I'm Roniel.
I'm DaRon.
And if you like this episode, please like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you think. What do you think about life? What are some of your biggest regrets? What would you want to do, in your future? Or what could you have done? You know what I'm saying? But think about some of the things we said. Let us know what you think about in the comment section, because we would love to know. Until the next time.
Have fun.